You look sterling. You look really.
Oh, wow.
No, you look like a senator. You know that.
Well,
yeah.
thank you.
And in the audience, welcome very, very much to Conversations. A dear friend of myself and the universe, for that matter. That's Colia Clark. She'll be familiar to a number of the people in the audience, I would think, because she was running very diligently for the United States Senate on the Green Party in the recent election. You'll be known for that. Also, she has been a long time proponent and fighter for civil rights with a lot of the pioneers in that field. And she's also very interested in international affairs, and she's a great friend of the universe. And Colia, so good to see you. Welcome.
Harold, it's always wonderful seeing you. When I see you, I see a man who I know is on the cutting edge of what tomorrow is going to look like. That's
what we'd want to try. Yeah, we'd want to try to be that way. But Colia, why don't we just we've done programming with you in the past, but we had a very good mutual friend in Stokely, or Kwame Ture.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a dear friend of mine and dear friend of yours way back in the days. Yes. And everything. Why don't you share a little bit of your background? And I also want to mention and get it in that you are about to be celebrated in March for your long-term civil rights record, and I want to congratulate you on that and let people know about it.
Oh, well,
but share your background a little bit, personal background.
Well, you know, I'm from Mississippi originally,
and
grew up in, of course, obviously a poor family, but not the normal poor, because I don't know these hunger pieces, and I didn't live in the kind of housing because my father built his own homes. We built 2 of them.
Yeah.
I come out of a family of landowners, and so the consciousness was always to own and to be able to care for oneself. Owe no man was my father's and mother's philosophy.
Okay. It was what?
Owe no man.
Owe no man. I see. Right. Okay. Yeah.
You take care of yourself. You own that. And I grew up in what was the dying matriarchy, in the sense that there was not on my father's side any of the parentage left. They had lived very long lives, but they all left out before I was born, last year before I was born. Some of them well into the hundreds.
Wow.
But they had been slaves and prisoners of war brought in from Africa in the 1820s, 1830s, and 1840s.
Wow. Yeah.
So I grew up in that kind of a family in Mississippi, still holding to the matriarch, the old traditions. My father was what was at that time called colored Methodist.
Colored Methodist?
Colored Methodist. These days they're called Christian Methodist.
Oh, okay.
Well, these were the churches that were founded actually by the enslavers. As the Civil War was approaching the Civil War, you play the birth of all these churches.
Yeah.
So you have the colored Baptists that become Baptist.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the African Methodists and the churches out of the North.
Okay.
So I grew up in that tradition.
Was it important in the family?
Very important in the early part of my family, but I grew up with 2 radical parents.
Okay. Radical politically?
Very radical politically and radically spiritually.
Okay, both.
Yes.
I'm sort of interested in both.
So when my mother wasn't satisfied when we came to Jackson, Mississippi, and finally moved into the city, I was about 6.
Okay.
But we went to the Colored Methodist Church, a little place called Institutional Methodist. But my mother was not satisfied that the preacher knew what he was preaching about. In other words, she didn't think he had a basic understanding of the Bible. And 2, there had been people who had, we lived in a very, very poor community. So people would get burned out. Other incidents where poverty was just overwhelming. So the whole community would come together, as they would in Africa probably hundreds of years ago. And you would put together whatever you could to try to take care of a family. Somebody lost their parent and the children were left. You figured out how to place those children. You would try to find
There was a sense of community there that was very deep.
I grew up with community.
Yeah, but the racism was still endemic.
The racism was absolutely
just almost
endemic.
Environmental,
we could when they weren't there, you didn't see them. You knew they were there. The presence was strong.
Right.
But the community was very, very strong.
Right.
The community of people where my fortune was that the community in which I grew up didn't have broken homes. There were very few of those. In fact, I had to look for broken homes.
Really?
But we were poor.
Right.
We were impoverished.
But you all pulled together.
People owned their own little homes. Everybody pulled together.
Right.
And
So
my mother, when the preacher didn't satisfy her that he had given money to a blind man who had a lot of children. One Sunday morning, there were 10 children, but it was 7 now. This was her first 7. One was a baby in arms. And she got up and she preached a 45-minute sermon in the church. We were so embarrassed.
Right there from the right there from the pew.
No, we all no. She preached it from
right from the
right.
Right.
And she was always noticed because she was like a kind of a bronze color with long silk hair and all that stuff.
A little fiery sometimes
no,
in her
justice. Fiery.
Justice, yeah, right. Justice crept into the word justice crept into the vocabulary, right?
So my mother didn't understand. There were no blacks and whites. It was only black and white. There was nothing in between. So she preached to the man and asked him why he had that new Cadillac out front. And then she lined us up, and she said, "Now you're just lined up." I'll never forget. We had to line up from the oldest to the youngest. My oldest brother had to take the baby, and we followed her out of the church. And meanwhile, the preachers hollered at my father, who was a deacon. He was saying, "Mr. Liddell, talk to your wife." And she says, she got really hot. She says, "Oh, just let him get up." Kids teased us for years.
Yeah,
just let him get up.
Yeah.
And I'll take on both of you. So like a mother duckling, we followed her down.
Yeah, right.
Because Jackson, where we lived, was still woods.
Yeah.
So when there must be cane fields and cornfields and cotton fields.
Yeah.
And we followed her across the cane fields and cornfields.
So it was a rich environment.
And my daddy was running behind us. It was such a wonderful environment. I grew up with music and drama. My mother comes out of a blues family, but that's gospel. She also comes out of a gospel family. That's very popular.
Big difference in blues and
gospel. My
gospel.
daddy's a Dixonaire family, so there was
what
Dixonaires, a very popular gospel group.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, okay.
So I grew up with all kind of old African games and the new games of youth and
you talk about music, roots of gospel, roots of blues the same?
They sound
the environmental thing, are they coming out of the same environment?
I don't know how.
Yeah, do it.
I grew up with a blues song and a gospel tradition.
All right. That's good. But now when you got into, the civil rights thing was just a brewing, wasn't it?
Well,
and you got involved
my father
with that.
had been in the
We're talking
labor
like
movement.
around 1960 or so, or
I
something
came to the civil
around.
rights movement actually in 59 when I got to college, officially.
Okay.
So I'd been connected with the youth council in Jackson, the West Side Council, which was the oldest youth council of NAACP.
And you were strong committed at the beginning. Did you come to it slow? Did you come to it fast? Did you run right in, or what?
I came into a family. My father and my mother's people were all in the farm labor movement. So I was baptized in it.
Okay, yeah,
and
right.
So therefore, my parents had been registered voters all their lives, just about. In an area where nobody registered for. My mother and father.
What was the context out of that prior to that was coming out of? What was the attitude? You got something that's so blatantly and so openly, strange fruit, all of that. You have that thing. What was the attitude generally toward the fact that this situation existed as you came into maturity and had existed for so long, and yet was destined to be challenged so fundamentally? It must have been a moment of great awakening or something.
You're a child. You come into your maturity when you're 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah, and you happened to come into maturity
I had a very serious incident when I was 2 years old.
What do you mean? I don't mean. You want to talk?
My mother and I straight off from the house with my brother. We went up to the little street, up the little store up the street. My mother and father and everybody was in the fields. And so actually, my brother, who was 2 years older, kept my sister and I. And my sister's 2 years younger than I.
Yeah, okay.
So he was our babysitter. But when we would put her to bed, we would slip off.
Yeah.
We'd take these little adventures. And
how old you are now, you're talking?
I was 2.
2?
And we went up to the street. I'll never forget it. I went up to the street, up this little rocky road in the woods. And I guess it was the only little store. There was nothing else around.
Yeah,
we were in the woods. There were bobcats and there were, all kind of wild animals, and
but you were
I loved the owls. But it was a wild world. When you're a kid, when you care,
aren't they gorgeous?
We only worried about the snakes.
Yeah, right.
And my brother, who was a big kid, also was pretty good at getting rid of snakes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Kid. It was a wild world.
Really, yeah.
And he used to say to me, "I'm going to teach my baby about the world And so his baby followed him to the store.
Yeah, right.
He was 4 and I was 2.
Uh-huh.
And we went in, and there was a white woman sitting there. I'd never seen a white woman.
Yeah.
You know, and I was told, we'd hear about white women, but you never seen one.
Yeah, right.
I knew the mailman was white, though he looked like a lot of my father's and mother's people. They all looked the same colors and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's mixed families, you know. But he was a nice mailman named Brady. I liked Brady. And so now I was in the store, and there was a white woman, and my brother whispered to me, "That's a white woman." And I was so excited. I said, "Woo!" I stared, you know. Yeah. I'm staring at this lady.
Yeah.
And I guess I triggered something in her that bothered her so that she took a Coca-Cola, took the cap off of it, and then she pulls this dog up between her legs, and she gives the dog some Coke, and she said, "I'd rather give Coke to a dog than a black nigger bitch."
Oh, my Lordy.
Lordy, I didn't know what nigger was. I didn't know what bitch was. We didn't play that N-word, and I don't play the N-word now. Nigger's nigger.
Yeah.
And I sat there looking at this lady, and my brother was trying to get me because he was a little child. He was a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
He's trying to get me out. But meanwhile, the men in the store.
He was worried.
The men took her on. Oh, no, they took her on. They threw her out of the store. And
they did?
Out. Yes.
Yeah.
They didn't want any problem with Eugene, my mother's Colia, and Eugene and Colia.
Okay, you had a long way to go. From that to
from
where you got with Stokely.
To Medgar, and then, of course, to Robert Moses, who will be honored with me, by the way. He's also receiving the Flame of Freedom Award. Robert Moses.
Okay, let's talk about that right now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Long time coming, and talk about
47 years later.
Thank you, yes. And you're being
my husband and
honored.
I founded the Black Belt Alabama Project in Alabama in 1963.
Okay.
That's the first husband, Bernard Lafayette. And so this year, it's 47 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm getting such a kick out of it.
And you're going to be honored, right?
I will be honored for the work at Alabama.
Okay, that'll be in March. That's just
that will be in March 3rd through the 7th.
Congratulations.
So I'm going down. It's the Freedom Flame Award.
Okay.
But, you know, the work that I've begun in Mississippi, I'm the founder of the North Jackson NAACP Youth Council.
Okay.
But I'm among the first founders of the Tougaloo chapter NAACP Youth Council, which was the first college chapter of NAACP Youth Councils in the state of Mississippi.
When did it get going serious out of a long history of just having been there? That's the condition, that's the thing everybody was adjusting. You know, history is a thing that moves in phases, doesn't it? It comes, you got certain things, and everybody's just accepting it's like environmental. The sky is blue, and, you know, there's racism and that kind of stuff. And then there started to be some real serious stirrings and questioning of something as fundamental. It came up to Bull Connor and all that stuff. People around, I think at around 1960 where it really got going in some earnest and everything.
Yeah,
but,
I think that the lift off
and
was with
and I want to
60.
just preclude, because we're talking now on February, 3 of 2011. We just saw.
We're 2 days in from the beginning of a major movement.
Major movement in Egypt. We're talking about Egypt. We're talking about, and we're going to get around. You just got back from Libya. We're
and Algeria.
So movements. What happens? What happens within the human condition and so forth? You've been living for a situation where you've had that, living with that for, societally. We're living with that kind of a thing, and it was just environmental, and then something stirs, and there's a time, and there's a season for everything or something. You were there, it seems to me. Well, you were sort of initiated with that Coca-Cola bottle at 2. I was 2.
No, I had a mention at
right.
At 7.
Oh boy, okay.
In the Delta, we went to the Delta understand. But let me just say this.
Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
I understand
what
you're getting
causes there to be in the human condition addressing of really fundamental systemic justice issues or qualitative transformation issues or something? And particularly back again to when you were young, you talked about college and the work that you did in civil rights, along with, well, Stokely and Moses and other people. I mean, just address it, and then we'll get to the contemporary.
No, I think that we have to be real clear that
let's be.
If you look at the state of Mississippi, and you have to look at Mississippi, and I think to understand Mississippi is to understand the struggles of the South.
Okay.
When the Civil War ended, Mississippi is the state.
Yeah.
That gave us 2 black U.S. senators.
Okay, really?
Mississippi is the state that would have a lieutenant governor. Mississippi is the state that will have a congressman. Mississippi is the state that would have mayors galore. Mississippi is the state that would have all of these electoral political officials.
Okay.
But Mississippi also had architectural and engineering firms, and Mississippi will have insurance companies. It didn't have as much as most of the South. If you looked at Georgia, of course, Mississippi could not compare, but Mississippi and the rest of the South began a trek immediately upon the end of slavery. One, to get married. Two, to make sure that your children, you owned your children, because there's a struggle around owning your children.
Yeah, amazing.
To make sure that you get an educational institution. So there are all of these educational institutions springing up. Tougaloo gets Russ College, a college at what's now at Russ College. It was not Russ at that time. I can't remember the original name. And then it gets Tougaloo College, where I will go, and it's the oasis of the South during the 1960s. And that this is the place that houses the civil rights movement.
Okay.
But there has never been a point in Mississippi when there was not a steering.
A what?
A steering. When people are actually moving, trying to pick up, trying to move forward with some kind of a movement. There's never a point. In 1945, Mississippi...
You think that's the lesson of history? That's the way history is, that way. You have these long periods, you have glacial periods, you know what I mean?
Yes, you have glacial periods.
Right.
But anyway, if you look at the glacial periods, when you get the little breaks, the cracks in the ice, you'll see when the heat hits. You'll get these heat points. You'll get points in Mississippi in the 20s. You'll get heat points in the 30s. And in 45, Mississippi is at the United States Congress demanding to remove the worst demagogue the nation has ever known, Theodore G. Bilbo.
Well, I don't know, Bilbo, never heard of him.
He was a senator from the state of Mississippi, but
bad man.
Governor in Mississippi, wrote all kind of books and garbage about black people being inferior, that the destruction of Egypt, we talked about Egypt, Bilbo wrote that Egypt was destroyed by black people. But when they let black people in as slaves, as far as he was concerned, that was a wrong move, because these people came in and they would invade and they would destroy Egypt.
That's what I'm saying. There was so much ignorance.
I mean,
and prejudice and stupidity.
It was just pure madness.
Yeah,
There's no other way to find it. It's a man who worried about the size of your feet, not just the color of your skin. The nose are too big, the feet are too big, the nose. I mean, just all of this child's play. In one sense, but this was adults. It was not child's play, in that it was very violent.
Yeah, right. And people will resort to these kind of things. Ignorance is so manifest, so much of the history, but. Okay, I understand
So
that.
what I'm saying, there's a spiral of events.
Yeah, that's right. Spiral and so in evolution, if you talk about evolution in the, you know, we evolved, we're all African. That's one thing we all know. And there's a time of, say, millions of years of steady state. Things go steady state. Things are steady within a very narrow range of thermodynamic, you know, it's amazing. And then there comes a thing, and they call it punctuated equilibrium. The new appears. You know, there's it's almost like a metaphor within the womb or something. You're in there, and then there's something new. You come into a new thing. Evolution of a new species.
Yeah, you don't just sit in the womb.
No, you studied long time, and so it is with human affairs.
And development, and so it is with movements.
Like human affairs, perhaps, and we have history, and it's all a big nightmare of injustice. In my view, by and large, it's been one group conquering another group. We're the winners, and then they make them slaves and all that and everything. And it's leading towards something. It may be leading towards something like in the good books, or some sort of a liberation or a new way of being, or elemental justice, or a city on a hill or something. And you have all these movements that are moving like that and everything. And so it was with the civil rights issue, which was a burning issue as far as the United States of America was concerned. So if you look and you matured as that was just taking off in a new phase.
Everything was happening with me. I was being introduced to electricity, running water. I mean, all of these things that didn't exist.
Right, okay.
They didn't exist in my world as a baby.
Are you talking about the time of college now? You went from
being 2 when I was a little girl. I'm growing up now.
Yeah.
So at each phase of this, something is happening in my life.
Right.
And I will be doing my biography soon, so you might as well get a
So
there's a Supreme Court decision of 54, and then after 54, you know, that means that Mississippi rushes forward, and like the rest of the states, by 55, we have lawsuits. Demanding desegregation of schools. I mean, so all of these things are part of what will lead to, and then King, of course, in Alabama.
Major.
We can't get around that.
No way. No way to get around it.
There on that church that sit on top of a slave stall. That's what that church sits on, this old slave stall. And so there at that church, what happened, a young girl would sit on a bench outside in March of 1955. Claudette Colvin.
Okay. I don't know. She'll
sit on, she'll move from that bench to a bus, and that bus, she will desegregate. She will demand that she'll get...
Before Rosa Parks.
She will send somebody to 9 months to Rosa Parks' seat.
Yes, right.
Then 7 months to Rosa Parks. Now, this is a journey, Harold. Another young girl, Mary Louise Smith. will sit on the bus at Montgomery, do the same thing. Now, the difference between the girls and the adults is that they will not be tried in the same court because they're juveniles. But also the difference is that Claudette Colvin will be the only one of more than 200 people who sit in before Rosa Parks who will not plead guilty. Right. Well, Colia Clark, Colia Liddell at that time, my maiden name is Liddell, in Mississippi, is listening.
Yes, of course, soaking it up. Yeah,
I'm being guided by a 15-year-old. She's the same age I am. Hey, you know, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Okay, so that may have lessons for the modern age.
So when we look at what's happening in Tunisia, what's happening in Egypt, at this hour, it's the same thing that happened. You know, you hear about the desegregating here. Somebody stood up against somebody there. Right. Somebody didn't get lynched or fought back there. So all of these things become like sparks. Sparks. And then you get the fire because, yes, King and the Montgomery movement was there in 55, but by 1960, after Little Rock, which was again youth, we're talking about an age of youth leading into, starting with Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin, by then you're coming into the Deep South, and 4 young men take a seat, and they have not been properly celebrated. They need a monument in Washington, Harold, that one that has SNCC's name on it, because SNCC will be the people that will push their movement forward.
Who got SNCC? Was it Kwame?
February 1.
Was it Stokely who got that going, or who associated with it?
No. Ella Baker.
Ella Baker. Okay.
We call her Mama Baker, who had been the founder of the NAACP youth chapters in NAACP chapters in the South, who had also been the founders of the WCA chapters across the South for colored wise, but who also was the person who helped Dr. King to found SCLC.
I'll be darned.
Down in New Orleans. And here in New York, she had been the person who in 1937 and 38 was demanding rights for maids right here in New York City in the Brooklyn area. So this is a woman who was a long-term organizer, one of the finest minds I've ever met. So all of this, all of these forces are coming together. Everything will come together.
You're talking now. What? Put a year on it.
I'm talking about 1960 now, because the SCLC would get rid of.
1960. That's what I was thinking.
SCLC gets rid of her. Dr. King goes off to. She had been the first executive director. Dr. King runs off to India in '59 for the Gandhi Trail and nonviolence. He was not our leader. He was not our leader. Okay. We had respect for him, and certainly we saw what happened in Montgomery. But between Montgomery and 60, the only thing we have of the, except for some lynchings, a serious lynching in Mississippi, is the youth who sit down at the lunch counter, who go to schools in Little Rock. The only thing we have in that time period is the lynching of Mac Charles Parker at Popularville, Mississippi in 1959. And it was dear. Because remember now, I'm a young woman now. The year that I entered college, and all of my high school students, we're flying off the back. Let's get this thing on the road.
Okay, good.
And we were not talking about getting this thing on the road in the traditional sense. We were looking at African liberation movements coming on the scene. We had Nkrumah in '57.
That's right.
And then in '60, oh my God, that was a man of man. That was Jomo Kenyatta with the Bow Wow. In fact, Medgar named his first child.
Did he really?
Oh, yes. My child is named after Jomo.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know. It was happening. It was coming out of Africa. All that stuff was going on. Yes,
all of these moves, everything is happening. Plus, there's stuff happening in Europe and Germany, and there's student movements in Korea. All of these things are swelling. There's no one single element. Yes, Mississippi. But Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and the student movement is in the midst of a worldwide movement, and we will just be the kind of seal it. With 60. And with those 4 young men that February 1, 2 days ago.
Now
sat down down in Greensboro, North Carolina, and then SNCC by April will open up the new movement by becoming an organization. At that time, a coordinating council, and under the leadership of Ella Baker, but the youth themselves were the leaders. And so the movement kicks off.
Major movement.
That's right.
Major movement that had huge transformation and all that sort of thing, and learning good lessons about looking at the wider world. Right.
So in '59, I go to college. We found the first NAACP youth chapter, and then in '60 we get this boom. These 4 young men sit down, and the whole South stands up, but not alone. There's a tendency to look south. The South was directly connected to Northern struggle. So when they sit down in the Southland at the Woolsworth, young people went into Chicago and demanded that National Woolworth either open the South, desegregate, or they were going to close it down.
Right, you are.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the heck of it is too darn. Reality's too interesting. It's too interesting. I mean, we could go on, but one of the things we got that's really interesting go on and on.
So
and we should.
And
I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to
Selma. It's about the bridge that Dr. King was on, and the destruction on the bridge, and the trampling with the horses and all of that. But it's also about the fact that the Lafayettes came in, Bernard and Coley, followed by Frank Holloway, and he will be honored with me. I'm surprised that he's just been honored. And we set up the Black Belt Project for 7 Black Belt counties in Alabama.
Okay, good. And all of that is there, and you've been working well ever, and there's a whole lot of intervening stuff between now and then and now. And you've been active all along, and you're still active, and you're doing a lot of things. And the thing we want to do is sort of, in a sense, bring it up to date, because you've been very interested in things that civil rights. There was a lot. I know you were a close friend of Stokely's and so forth, and all that sort of thing. You've been, but now you're up in New York, and you've been getting active now in terms of the president. We just did bring up what's going on in Tunisia and in Egypt and so forth. So maybe we could sort of segue into that with that background that you've been active all your life.
All my life.
I don't think you ever gave up the pursuit of justice for people and everything. You still have that calling.
Well, I think that my family's commitment was, when I was a child, now there's been a lot of changes since, is that you stay on the battlefield until you die.
Okay.
So either you win or you die fighting. There's no turning back point. So I've not had a turning back point in my life, because that was my commitment from my mother's father, who
This is a one-way street.
Yes.
This is a one-way street, this life, right? Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I understand.
And I like it. It's a good race. It's a good race.
Okay, it is, and it's still going on, and there's still a lot of challenge and everything. You ran for the Senate with the Green Party recently.
Yes.
People will remember that campaign.
Yes,
you were doing a lot of stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, you did. That was a good experience. Had you run for office before that, or was that your initiation?
No, never. I played around with running other people for office.
Yeah, you did a lot of work.
Working for Cynthia McKinney, but also working up at Albany, New York.
You're close
with a number of candidates. I love her.
You love Cynthia from way back?
And she just took us to, I just met Cynthia in the last 3 years.
In the last 3 years, okay.
Yes, now of course her record has been there.
Yeah,
in terms of meeting her and getting to know her, she's one of the most dynamic women this world has ever created.
That's true.
And I think one of the best leaders we're going to have.
She's down Georgia.
She's an honest woman.
Yeah.
She's a woman who is committed. And I like her because she really studies an issue and is willing to jump in with both feet.
Yeah, and she's got commitment.
Oh, totally.
Commitment. She was on one of those boats, wasn't she, that went to Gaza?
Went into Gaza, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
It surprised me. She didn't tell me she was going.
Yeah.
And I got a call from somebody early in the morning that says, Cynthia's in the middle of the
Mediterranean Ocean.
And they're bombing it.
Yeah, wouldn't you know? Cynthia's at it again.
I got caught on all my ancestors. Get to the waters, ancestors. Get out that full of
Right.
Yeah,
but you decided to take the plunge with with the Green Party.
Yes, I did.
And talk about how you got into that.
What happened?
And then we want to get you got some.
I was a Democrat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And, it took me a long time to get involved in voter registration because I didn't believe that the civil rights movement in which I was involved completed the course.
Okay.
When they shoot your leader in the neck, you don't leave the battlefield. We left the battlefield.
Yeah, it still goes on. Yeah.
And so by leaving the battlefield, we left it to the Panther Party, and all those young people were just killed off. We left it to the Black Liberation Army. And other groups like that were coming into the battlefield as we were leaving. At the death of a leader. So I only got involved when Jesse decided to run for office, and I was
88
like,
or so, 84, 88?
84, is it 84 with Reagan? Reagan's in office when Jesse runs.
Okay, yeah.
So I got involved, it had to be 84.
He had a lot of silver-throated capability as an orator and talking. He could really talk.
Did he run against Reagan?
I'm not sure. I can't remember to tell you.
Must have run against Reagan. No, he couldn't have run. Well, anyway, the 80s.
He might have run
against
against
So that's when
Reagan.
I got involved in politics. A friend of mine also was running for Congress in Mississippi, and I worked on
Democratic Party politics. Yeah.
Leslie Burrow, Professor Leslie Burrow McLemore was running, of course, Democratic politics in Mississippi at that time, and still is for black folks.
And that's where you were then? Where you
Yes,
lived?
I was back in Mississippi. I'd been in New York, but I returned. My children had to be raised.
Okay.
And I love New York, but I found it difficult as a single mother.
Yeah.
Because, I left a husband.
But you're here in New York now.
Yeah, I'm back now, but I'm
Mississippi's loss is
I'm
New
not
York's
a single
gain.
mother.
No, I know. It's a different ball game, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm a single grandmother.
Yeah, right. No, I hear you.
Great grandmother.
Yeah.
But I took my children home to be reared. I went home in '73, January '73. I took the kids home.
Good decision.
And so I finished up college after all those years.
Good decision to go back there to raise the kids?
Oh, the best decision I ever made.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yes. I had to take them home.
Lesson in there. Okay,
It was a lesson in they're boys. And I was now 4 children deep and divorced. Didn't make any sense to try to raise them in New York City.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't have that kind of a support system. I needed to take my kids home.
Yeah. And
because I had a father, 8 brothers, and a sister. And everybody was married, and families.
Ain't the extended family a great thing?
It's a wonderful thing, especially when you're the mother who has issues.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the tragedy of the black
community. Well, that's a whole lot of the human
broken down.
Whole lot of the community of the human community is set by the mothers who have such situations, and that's a very important issue. And sorry, we don't have more of the extended family than we have had out of history, it seems. But that's a whole other issue we could write.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you're writing a book.
Oh yeah, I've got to.
About your life.
You do it. It's time for me to get it done.
But let's get up to it. So the Green Party. Let's get up to the present. So I got involved
with Cynthia. With Cynthia, we were building the Reconstruction Party, which evolved out of the New Orleans situation under some other folk, and I got involved with that. And Cynthia was very involved with that. And in 2007, 2008, we abandoned, and Cynthia decided she'd go to the Green Party. So I followed her, left the Democrats, and became a Green.
Okay, and you
took a good look at the Green Party.
Where is Cynthia standing now? Where is she?
She's still Green.
She's still Green.
Yes.
Okay.
And
there may be hope for other things emerging out of the lock on things that the Democrats and Republicans have had.
We hope to block the hold that the Democrats and the Republicans have on this nation. And I think the Green Party is the party to do that.
You think so?
It has a lot of potential. It is in 44 states. It has a lot of fine folk who have really studied issues.
Howie ran as governor.
Howie Hawkins out of Syracuse.
Good guy,
powerful brother who ran for governor this past time.
Yes.
And no, we did not have ballot status, but because of Howie's run for governor, along with Gloria Materas as lieutenant governor, and the 2 senators, and of course Julia Wildebrand, who ran
Malachi McCourt used to be involved.
Yeah, so
Malachi McCourt was involved with the Greens, I think. You know, who else is involved with the Green thing? There's others. Some people talk about the Freedom Party and other parties.
The Freedom Party is not involved with the Green Party.
No, I'm saying what we're talking about is other parties. Is there a possibility where we're going to get beyond the 2-party lock on things that has been the case here in the United States?
I think in New York we have an opportunity.
It's going to be forced upon us, perhaps because they don't have solutions that are required. Perhaps we've got a lot of stuff coming out of what do you call it, Tea Party, criticizing the established status quo from the right. There doesn't seem to be anything very effective from the liberation, from the left, for the concern with the mass of the people that traditionally has been Democrat.
Well, the problem is that the focus on the Tea Party from its evolution. There's never been a real focus on the Green Party.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No real focus even on.
Or there doesn't seem to be anything coming out just for the hell of it.
No, because the mainland media is the thing that's building.
Well,
yes
and no, but I mean the Green Party. I mean the Tea Party is like a I don't know, something of the Republican, a right wing.
Yes,
and it's like out of know nothing. They used to have the know nothing party. It's ignorance and stuff, but they're making a big thing.
Yeah, but they have some good things to say. They have some good things to say in
Okay.
the Tea Party. I think we have to be very careful with looking at the Tea Party, because some of the Tea Party's discussions, for example, of the health plan, the forcing of citizens to purchase health insurance.
That's going to come in tested in the court, isn't it?
Yes, and that's a fair call. You know,
Wasn't that a call that was being made in the primary between Obama and Hillary?
I didn't hear that.
Well, I heard it in the debate about this. It's going to be tested in the court, the the requiring people to buy health insurance. You know,
yeah, they did it through the Commerce Clause. I mean, so
yeah.
we went through we looked at the Commerce Clause under the Constitution, and through this you push forward this thing. So the argument becomes, if you have to buy car insurance,
yeah, you do,
then you ought to have to buy health insurance.
Well,
car insurance is a privilege, but I have some rights, and the right to buy from whom I please is a right that I don't choose to give up. So I can understand the Tea Party with that, and we have to look at what there is there that has allowed them to pull in such a mass base.
Yeah, they got a mass base, and
because there's some of the stuff that they're saying.
But where is it coming from? The left? From the people that are leading the major, as far as I'm concerned, intellectuals and people that the advances. When you say progressive, you've got things that are making advantage, taking care of the least among it, taking care of the people rather than just showing up the power of the people who traditionally holds power. That's coming from the left, and the left doesn't have an effective challenge, or should they have?
Well,
is the Green a challenge?
The left had an effective challenge that has been taken from it. That it was the left built an environmental movement in this country. It's the left that has looked at the issue of ecology, and the left
but they don't have an organized
lost this stuff because it never had enough force to demand the credibility with the media. And since the mass media is
what did the Tea Party do that gave them that, and even helped get 20?
I think the corporate funded.
Well, okay, the corporate did. The corporate traditionally will. But whatever the source of support for the left, or from the liberation, civil rights, all the things that have been advanced more from the left than from the right. Okay, why isn't there something that is challenging the system, the status quo, from the left that's effective? Able to criticize the whole system the way the Tea Party's trying to do, making some trouble with the Republicans and so forth. But do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear you. And I do think, I'm not defending the left. I hear what you're saying, and I have a lot of criticism of the left. But I think we're going to see over the next year. Well,
maybe Tunisia's fits into this. You understand? There may be something stirring on this planet.
No, I think Tunisia is not only stirring there. I think we're going to get Tunisia's in the U.S. in the sense I think we're going to see
That's what I'm
uprising. We've seen the spark. We saw it at Jeddah. We saw it with New Orleans. We have seen the sparks.
Yeah.
We even saw it with the Obama campaign.
Yeah, that was a high mark.
And it's taken a lot out of young people because they don't believe that they put in all of this energy and had all of these high hopes.
Yeah, hoping for something to be really, it's like waiting for the real introduction of an order like the future requires, rather than just climbing up that long Mount Sisyphus trail where everything keeps rolling back. It takes forever. We've been here hundreds of years. There's no justice raining down. There's no real justice. The systemic problems are still there.
But if we look at the ladder of events, when we look at the ladder of events, you look at labor, you look at women, you look at civil rights, all of these events have taken place, and they have moved the nation forward.
That is true, yeah.
And so there tends to be movements, then a rest period of 15, 20 or more years, and then movement again. So I think that we're getting ready now for the big one.
Okay, well, I would hope so.
This time will be around the economy itself.
And I'm glad that you've gotten yourself into politics to be there on the cutting edge of the big one. I want you to be there, right up on the rostrum, raising hell.
All right,
And you've been doing that. And the trouble now, you've come back. You were just visited. You were just. I've been in touch with you. You were just in Algeria a couple months ago or so at a conference, and then you just returned from the country of Libya.
Okay, Algeria with the trade unionists.
We got about
wonderful conference.
20
then
minutes
in Libya. I was there because the conference that was a conference of my heart. I told Cynthia when she sent me an email, asked me if I would join her, that I would set aside everything I was doing because this conference was on the diaspora. That is Africans and migrants in Europe and what they thought were migrants. Well, the recent migrants that are coming in from Central and South America and Africa into the U.S. and the old body of us who've been here since 1572.
Yeah, okay. Now, the one in Algeria, when was that? What was it called for? How did you go? That was only a couple of months ago, I remember.
This was an open world trade conference.
Okay.
Trade unionists from around the world meeting in Algeria on Thanksgiving Day.
Had you been there before to Algeria? Had you been to North Africa?
My second trip to Algeria.
To Algeria particularly?
Yeah, I was invited by the parliament in 2006 or
So you get a little
2007.
feel for the North African realm.
I like the North African
You
realm.
do,
It's
yeah.
really wonderful.
Had you been other
delightful
places there along North Africa?
Ghana has been the only other place.
Ghana, that's down, that's not really North Africa.
Right,
You haven't been to
Ghana's
Morocco.
West Africa, no.
And you got a feeling for things there, having been there. And then you got this call to go with Cynthia to Libya.
Yes.
And I particularly would like to be able to talk, and you have some photographs.
I have
In fact, you have a photograph here that we can hold.
This is
Let me hold it. Let me hold it.
Yeah, this is,
Let me
I'm
find
in
out
Libya,
where.
and I'm being received by the deputy prime minister.
Which camera? Is this robotic? You just talk. You just talk to it.
I'm being received here by the deputy prime minister. I'm in my Mali dress, and I'm very, very excited. Looking forward to the beginning of this conference on the Africans, migrants in Europe.
Now, who are you talking with there, honey?
And I'm talking with the deputy prime minister of the parliament. I can't remember his name.
Okay, right. Okay, that's a beautiful photograph.
Really very excited. You know, he's welcoming me and giving me this big handshake. And somebody snapped the picture and sent me a copy.
Okay, good. And this is that.
Yes.
And then you also have a series of other photographs.
I have
that are
photographs
on
with Cynthia McKinney, who was really a primary person at this conference, representing the Western world.
And this had to do with the diaspora, African diaspora.
It's all about the migrants in Europe and in the USA and Central and South America. It's all the diaspora.
And that was
including the Eastern diaspora.
And that was your first trip to Libya.
My first trip to Libya.
How did you see?
Did
you see a comparison between Libya and Algeria, or was there a difference between the two?
Well, Libya had a different kind of a spirit from Algeria.
Okay.
I didn't feel the youth. I don't want to call it violence because the youth in Algeria, I don't think they're violent. I just think that they were oppressed by 70% unemployment rate. 70% unemployment rate.
The wretched of the earth. I mean, and what they fought with the French was just horrible.
Oh, and
what happened in that country in the 50s? Yeah, it was horrible, horrible, yeah.
And then to be there with Sister Louisa Hanon, who is the sister who has developed women's movements not only in Algeria but Tunisia, Lebanon, and Palestine.
Okay, and that's right next to.
And she's the prime minister of the parliament these days. She has the parliament. She ran this conference. She's the most elegant and beautiful woman you ever want to meet as a person.
Yeah.
But brilliant.
Okay.
And committed. You talk about committed. This is a woman who was raped by the French during the
horrible, yeah.
The struggle. But she has held out and held on and organized other women. There are plenty of women in the Algerian parliament because of her and her work. And then there are women movements all across the Arab world because of Louisa Hanon and her work.
Okay, good.
So to have her invite me there in 2006.
She's the one who invited you.
Yeah, who invited me to
Algeria.
To Algeria.
The first time, then you went again.
Yes.
Follow up to that.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad you're reaching out to these communities.
To be there and to see youth. Now, the thing I just have to talk about showing up at the airport in Algeria this second time on Thanksgiving Day. And I had a heavy heart because I lost my brother as I was leaving for the airport.
Sorry.
So, I had a heavy heart traveling.
Yeah, right.
But it was a job that needed to be done, and I did need to be at the conference to see what would happen with the World Trade Unions movement. And this is a reinvigoration of that movement from around the world, about 480 participants. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, 282 participants.
Okay.
I won't get that number wrong.
Yeah.
But they came from across the world.
Right.
And so Russia and, Europe and Australia and all of Asia and Central and South America, to be at a conference with these fine minds and to be here with these union folk, these workers of the world, with the leadership of the workers, and to be here with them in Algeria was for me something I just had to do. But I was in the airport because they were 2 hours late picking me up. Somehow there was a mix-up on my arrival. And I was in the airport and I'm just stunned by what I was seeing. First time I was not met with a lot of military officials. The last time there was a lot of military.
Last time you'd been in Algeria?
Yeah, Algeria. First time
so there's some progress maybe there, yeah.
But I didn't see that. I don't know if it's progress or not. There was beggars in the airport. I'd never had that before.
Okay.
And then at least 4 of them approached me. So that was kind of challenging. I don't speak French. I don't speak Arabic. And I don't speak Berber. The Berber are the largest group. They're the biggest part of the population. But there was something else happening that I wasn't quite understanding, but I knew that I was in the midst of something that I needed to take note of. I noticed that when people would come in from the planes, that they, and I was like, whoa, that loud cry that the women were doing in the Battle of Algiers film. And so I taught that in college for years, and now I was hearing that cry.
For real.
And I'm in a room with it, in this big airport. And I'm asking, what's going on here? And I can't ask the question of anybody because I...
Yeah, you don't have the language. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And so finally, when someone came to pick me up, they told me that these were the men coming back from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, I see.
From Mecca. They'd been on the Hajj, and they were coming back.
Oh, I see.
And they were being welcomed, but I was interested in the hundreds that were welcoming them and the way in which they were welcoming them.
Right.
And so I was a little concerned that I might be seeing the rise at last again of an Islamic movement.
Okay, now on to, if we could, Libya. You went to Libya recently. You only got back a couple weeks ago.
I didn't have this. Different kind of an airport, different kind of an experience. Libya, Algeria, the youth were obviously, there had been 500 plus murders before I arrived, and so we were under tight security.
You're talking where?
Algeria.
In Algeria?
Yes.
Now what about Libya?
Now in Libya, it was just the opposite kind of experience.
You were able to fly right into the airport?
Right into the airport.
We used to have to get smuggled in, Stokely and or Kwame Ture. We had to get smuggled in back in the old days. And as you know,
we were coming in at the behest of the man himself, Muammar Gaddafi. He was inviting us and was paying our bills. And we went to this conference sponsored by the African Union.
And it had to do with that. And I guess a friend of mine, or an acquaintance, a friend I've had for a long time, Ali Trakey, was talking. And you got a feel for it. Had you read up a little bit about Green Book and that kind of thing?
No, I had not.
You had not, okay.
Cynthia didn't give me this kind of information, so I went like
you
most
went
folks,
to the conference,
to the conference.
Yeah, right.
I read on Libya, of course. I want to know what Gaddafi was doing these days.
I would like to know myself, because it seems to have changed.
He's really made this commitment to migrants in Europe and in the Western world, to making sure that either Europe settles them, America settles us.
Yeah, it's a problem.
That we are part of the societies, that the racism, the anti-Islamic religion and other religions, and the anti-humanity, the lack of employment, the migrants who are dying in the waters, and just dying.
Those are migrants a lot of them coming up from Africa. Yeah, right.
They're dying
a lot of problems in
Europe,
Africa.
And then they get to Europe and they're faced with mass oppression and repression. And then we have them coming up out of Central and South America.
Yeah, we have the same thing.
Exact issues.
Yeah, right.
And most people don't understand that these people are also, many of them, of African descent, direct African descent.
Yeah, right.
So Gaddafi is concerned about that. The African Union is concerned about that.
Right.
The African Union has expanded Africa.
They sure have.
So we are the sixth region of Africa now. The Western world is the sixth region.
And he's trying to aim toward getting the United States of Africa.
And he's moving towards the United States of Africa.
Makes me think of Kwame Nkrumah.
Well, he talked about Nkrumah
Pan-Africanism,
He talked about Nkrumah's speech and Kwame Nkrumah's push for a United States of Africa.
He also, Stokely was into Kwame Nkrumah and then Sékou Touré.
Yes.
And he lived in Guinea at the end of his life. Bob Brown was there when he passed. I was really sorry. I loved him. We used to go all the time with him. He was a great guy. And we were both enamored with his thinking, that is Colonel Gaddafi. He was a young officer, 27 years old, when they made a revolution about 2 days after the Woodstock Festival.
That's right.
There was something blowing in the wind, Bobby Dilling was telling us. Blowing in the wind.
It's still blowing for him.
And it may be, because he came up with a whole new idea. There were only 4 million people. They were some of the poorest people in the world at the time. They had suffered a Holocaust. Half of their population had been ruthlessly decimated, much like the Jews of Europe, in concentration camps, particularly under Italian fascism. They had really suffered, and they were very poor. Then there came to be a great deal of money because they had very good oil, and they set up a socialist Jamahiriya, or state of the masses. I don't know if you got into that thinking about the country.
I brought with you, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I brought back the Green Book, and I brought back some other materials.
That's a very handsome book.
Oh, this is a very handsome briefcase.
Very handsome briefcase.
This was a contribution, everybody, at the conference from
Muammar Gaddafi.
His Excellency Muammar Gaddafi to the rest of us, and I was really pleased to get it because I didn't have a briefcase when I went.
Yeah, it was good.
This little book that out of his library, you might want to look at that.
Yeah.
Terrorism and political terrorism.
Yeah.
But the Green Book that you were talking about, that was one of Dr. Trekke's presentations.
Yeah, the World Center for the Studies and Research of the Green Book.
Yes. Yes. So we have all of this new material that's coming out. This is my, this is it. The works of the Islamic Center.
Yeah.
That's there. And this is a really
Islamic call, yeah.
And these are the basic documents of the Green Book.
Yeah, this is...
So they have now, they've structured this. This is well structured.
Yeah.
They're moving on and pushing forward with a movement to, one, very clearly move to what's called the state of the worker.
Well, wait a minute, if I may. It's called I was very taken, still am, very taken with them. And I think of history a lot, and I think of some places are, in a certain sense, ahead of the rest of the world. And the United States, with the founding fathers of this system coming out of the Enlightenment, 1776, steam engine precursor to Industrial Revolution, coming out of feudal Europe, was in a certain sense historically in advance of the order that was being reified and contained within the architecture and all the institutions of the order that had held for 1,000 years, the Ancient regime. And I thought that there is a possibility that Libya represented a model relevant to what the future requires, that was coming out of whole cloth in a certain sense, because they set up a system where they put meeting halls for everybody. Everybody over 18 years old can go to a place. It's like a participatory town hall meeting process rather than representative Republican system that we've inherited. The United States and most all of the countries have gone along with in terms of what represents progress or legitimacy. And then they also set up a system where, as you could see these posters, or they have up on the little signs, workers, not wage earners. So they they actually were questioning in terms of the economic. So you had a participatory democracy they were attempting to set up, where the people were involved, and they tried to get sovereignty at the level of the people's congresses, which was a progressive attitude. He made Wheelus leave, the SAC base, and they made began helping to get OPEC together and that, and he was talking about a qualitative change. I think he may have been in position of relevance to the economic order that is assumed to be legitimate. That would be the United States of America, all of the institutions of the international order, the fact that you've got in every political entity a small class of people who own all the assets. You have everybody else, in a certain sense, being sycophant to those who own all the assets, and we're expected to accept it and so forth, and it's reifying all those institutions that is sclerotic. The institutions of our system, the Constitution that we bow down to and so on, is out of date with what the future requires, just as surely as the feudal order was out of date with what the future required in 1776. We're out of date. And so that he may have been it, because he's not only set up a system aiming at participatory democracy rather than representative democracy, which gets bought. The best the best Congress money can buy and so forth. And we can see all the inconsistencies where everything is owned by a small plutocratic class in every entity, including the United States of America. But then they also set up a thing where the capital assets should be formed in a way where they're owned by the people, and they have little signs, partners or owners.
Yeah, partners and not workers.
Of the capital base rather than workers.
That's right.
And we got a system where all the capital assets in all political entities are owned by a small plutocratic class who run everything, set the template. Everybody else are like serfs on a feudal estate doing what they tell them they can do. And he set up a model that may have been relevant to the future, and it would be well for people who think about progress to give a consideration to what he was trying to do, much like the United States of America should have been listened to by much of the world, rather than the old order, the Ancient regime, which is now the United States of America and their running dog allies.
When you're
and it may be all being tested.
The end to wage slavery.
Okay, the end to
wage slavery.
Right.
Partnerships.
Ownership. No, but it also involves. Yeah, but we're talking about left and right and all that.
Yes.
The idea of private property is something that's going to have to be addressed. If we're going to have a system that's going to be liberating of everybody, but can be also subsuming adequately the old, outdated institutions, like practically everything we bow down to.
He's talking about setting up people's Congress. In fact, they have set up people's Congresses.
They have. Everybody has a place where they can go.
They built buildings that can house people all across Libya.
Well, they got people owning their own home. They got people owning their auto automobile. They owned this thing socially. It was done. They had money, like Norway. They could spread it around, and they did electricity in every village. They built the infrastructure. They built that Man River project, bring water to the North Plain, all wise investments and everything. And then if you start a business, you could start a business. What they were trying to enforce is you start a business, but you could not hire anybody. Now, Mr. Obama, all he says is, please, you got trillions of dollars, banking industry, please, would you create some jobs so we can get some money to the people? Here they were saying that formation of the capital should be done in a way where everybody owns it as a way of getting income, because the capital instruments are getting rid of jobs as a way of distributing income.
They're saying that the people will have ownership in determining what's going to happen with the money to begin with.
No,
we give the money to the bank.
No. The people can have a private property ownership.
Yes.
Okay, you have, like the people who get rich every night they sleep with just having a big portfolio of stock. They don't do anything for it. They don't work. The only people that have to work are the people that are the mass. They have to do work in order to get money. It's called a wage, and it's the labor theory of value, and it's the thing that's informed the left, surplus labor theory of value, and that's got to be got over. You got to have something where the ownership of capital instruments should be formed. A capital formation, capital accumulation should be done in a way, not where you say, well, it's all right for the few people, 1%, 5% of the population to own everything.
No, it's the man's
But the left doesn't have a vision to do that because they're all caught up with the work ethic.
Yeah, but you remember that the Marxist piece that we're talking about now started at a point. It had to build, just like I'm talking about the civil rights movement.
But it still informs the left.
Sure, but it informs the left, but the left will also now, most of them are left anyway. Well, by that I mean the left is not what it used to be. I think we're going through a radical change with movements.
Yeah, but it would be nice if the people who think, the people who are concerned with the least among us, had something to offer other than something like Sarah Palin's trying to condemn the system or trying to challenge the system. The left should have something which would include building ownership into the people as a way of distributing income. Public, why have it all formed in a way where it's all in the investment banking community, few people own everything, and they accept that, and would you please give us a few little jobs we can do on your estate so we'll have some income, and they're not going to have income to clear the market.
They're going to get to that point.
The problem is with the left, not with the bankers.
I would agree with you. I said the left is left. Dr. King, back in the 60s, remembers talking about unionizing communities.
Okay.
All right?
Uh-huh.
Move very interestingly in the same vein as Gaddafi. Unionizing communities. The people in the community would then be given the power to take control of what was happening with their lives.
How are they going to do? Who's going to own the private property stock ownership of the corporation?
We wasn't at this level yet.
Yeah.
We're just talking about unionizing the community.
Well,
organizing and educating.
Well, that was
Obviously,
okay.
that's a movement forward.
That was okay in Roosevelt's day. Solidarity forever. Now it's 5% of the private sector as a union.
That's right. It's going to get
it has no the labor thing. It's got
to go. We both agree on that.
Yeah, but the left is wedded to it.
But
the idea of working is so wonderful.
I think the left is rethinking. In fact, I've got a letter from, and I can't talk about it. I got a letter from brother on the left who's talking about just bringing all of these different strands and strings of leftists together.
Well,
you can't even get the groups together in the same room. Everybody has my thing.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what we shouldn't, because we got to. It's all divide and conquer.
So we need to look at Gaddafi. Let's look at Gaddafi's
I think
model.
he should be.
And if there are other models, let's look at other models. Let us look. I think wherever we need to look to talk about how we end the present state of oppression that is getting worse, that is going to bust.
All right,
we're going to have a bust in America like everywhere.
And the thing to
nobody will sit around and be hungry forever.
Okay, we're going to play a program we did with Mr. Gaddafi the day after we air this program in New York, so people are invited to tune in.